I was counting how many of us are. 1, 2, 3, 4. No, I think that no. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Eddie says
Yeah,
he's on his way. He's just finding the link.
Yeah.
yeah. I think there's quorum. Okay, so I'll start. I'm here. Mayura.
Here.
Amanda.
Here.
Brad.
I'm here.
Akim.
I am here.
Gerardo.
Here.
Laura.
Laura, here.
Celeste.
Here.
Daryl.
I'm here.
Alshade.
Here.
Nathan.
Here.
Okay, I think that Ed is on his way, and I just received an email from Caroline, and due to family circumstances, unfortunately, she will not be able to join. But I think that we do have quorum, anyway.
Thank you, Fernando. We have a quorum, so I will call this meeting to order at 5:34. Can I get a motion to approve the meeting notes, minutes from the last meeting? I think they were shared in the shared folder.
Yep, last night, yesterday.
Can I get a motion to approve those
Moved.
minutes? Thank you,
Second.
Laura. Thank you. I hear Amanda has seconded. We'll go ahead and do that without objection. Seeing none, those meetings are approved. Before we go into committee reports, I want to give Gerardo the opportunity to introduce himself to the rest of the board and to those who are attending.
Sure. Good evening, everybody. My name is Gerardo Luna. You can call me Jerry. Either way, it works for me. Thank you for having me here on the board. I'm excited. This is my first meeting here. A little bit of my experience. I've been doing nonprofit finance for over 25 years. I've worked in charter schools here in DC, and actually my current job is the network CFO for the Seed Foundation, which actually has 4 schools, one of them which is in DC. My parents are a little bit about me. They're Mexican immigrants. I'm first-generation American here in the United States. My mom's a teacher. My partner's a teacher. So a lot of education in my background and in my work. And I'm just saying I'm excited to be here and nice to meet everybody.
Thank you, Jerry, and welcome to
Nice
the
to meet you
Lamb
too.
board. Fernando will probably reach out to you in the next couple of weeks to get committee updates and everything. But in the meantime, welcome, and you've picked an exciting time to join. We'll start off with we'll go through the committee reports. I want to we'll switch up from the agenda. We'll start with finance and operation, then go to governance, then school performance and executive director search. Does that work for you guys?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Given that, let's turn it over to Daryl for the finance. And if you want to combine that with operation, that's fine too.
Okay, thanks, Akeem. We're going to do 2 separate reports. We'll start with finance. As usual, Brian will get us going with the financial dashboard, and he'll also comment on the recent audit results. And once he's done, I will talk a little bit about where we are with the budget process. And then Maria Jose will take it over from there with operations, the dashboard.
Okay, jumping in, And I'll just note our usual behind the scenes technician is out of town, out of the country right now. Thank you to Sophia for jumping in. I'm bringing this up simply from the standpoint. Okay, now it looks like she's got the screen sharing turned on. So see if I can find what I'm looking for and actually bring it up. You should see the report. I'm going to start with the annual audit, just because that is more historical in the past. This has been distributed. I'm not going to go through the whole report this evening, but simply wanted to highlight that since the last board meeting in December, the Finance Committee did meet with the auditors to review the audit report prior to the submission deadline to PCSB and to our bond trustees. Went through in some detail. And again, I'll spare going through all those details right now. The numbers ultimately are ours and are what are more important to you, but we have gone through the June 30 fiscal 23 numbers previously. There were some minor updates, but no major changes coming out of the audit. So I just wanted to highlight for those who may not be familiar, the important part coming from the auditors. And the first part is in the auditor's report, their opinion, where they are noting, we have audited the accompanying financial statements, et cetera, et cetera. In our opinion, the financial statements present fairly in all material respects, financial position of the Latin American Montessori Bilingual Public Charter School. That is what we traditionally get. That is what you want, is that present fairly opinion. Just as a reminder, hitting into a couple of the numbers, our assets, the most significant is our property. The next most significant is cash on hand. That cash on hand, for anybody that thinks it's significant, it's not insignificant, but it is very appropriate to have that level of cash on hand, recognizing our largest liability, the bonds that we hold. We need to have significant bond requirements require significant cash on hand. So we're in good shape there. The statement of activities, we ended the year better than what we had been budgeting and expecting, with the net change in net assets of minus 105,000 for the year. But do recognize that is skewed by our accruing the employee retention credit for 900,000. So it was a negative operating year, but we had that to swing us into a better position than we had anticipated. The final thing I was going to highlight, again, going back to information from the auditors, is towards the back. They have a report on internal controls. And in effect, some of this is boilerplate, what they need to do, but they're basically reporting to us that they saw no issues with our internal control structure, our compliance. That gets somewhat highlighted in a schedule of findings where they indicate no material weaknesses identified, no significant deficiencies, no matters of non-compliance. So very much what we would expect on that. Quick run through, again, the numbers really are the more significant part, but we've been through that before. Don't want to take up too much time tonight with that. But if any of you have questions on any of those numbers, let Daryl or I know, and we'll be glad to go through that in more detail with you. Now, addressing the current year, let me bring up our year-to-date financial dashboard. And again, we can be pretty quick with this evening. We've reflected year-to-date through December 31, 584,000 in net income. We budgeted a net loss. With the under enrollment, we're expecting to end the year with a larger net loss. So just bear that in mind. It's typical beginning of the year, given that our staff are paid on a 10-month year. We do a full accrual, but they're not effectively earning anything during the summer months, which is the start of the fiscal year, and that keeps expenses low. There are also some conservative efforts we've gone through, trying to be sure that we properly use the DC teacher compensation grant that came out of DC in a way that doesn't get us into trouble next year. And I say that from the standpoint, we simply don't know how those numbers are going to translate from a salary-based calculation for this year to a per pupil calculation next year. And so we're a little underspent on that this year, but we have to spend that. So those expenses will catch up. Having said that, it's looking like some of the things we budgeted conservatively in terms of transition costs, some staffing costs, and some of the direct student spending are being well enough controlled that we may not go as negative as the forecast had reflected. We'll be watching that more closely and following up in coming months. We already spoke to the audit, unmodified opinion with no identified weaknesses or concerns. In terms of some of the big triggers we focus on with PCSB and with the bond trustee, we continue to be fine with the days cash on hand. As I noted with the audit, we need to, given the level of debt that we hold. And our debt service coverage, if you remember going back to last year, the 1.27 that we have at December 31 is fine relative to the debt covenant, but it's far reduced. And that's simply because fiscal 24 is the first year we are paying full interest and beginning to pay down on the principal payments. So the required debt service is quite a bit higher in fiscal 24 than in prior years. That brings that coverage ratio for us down, but we are still in compliance without any problem. I'm not going to go through everything in these numbers. They're trending very much similar to our last board meeting report. Again, if there are questions you have, we can address them today or follow up with Daryl or I. But overall, I've already spoken to the net income, the revenues. While enrollment is down, other things have helped them out so that our year to date is pretty close to budget. As already suggested, expenses are running less than budget, and that's what's given us the positive bottom line. Here is where I point to the enrollment had led us in the early fall to anticipate a much higher net loss for the year. And I'm just saying some of the expenses are holding in place where I think we will be able to come in better than that $615,000 forecast net loss. We will refine that over the next couple of months. Don't see it getting any worse than that. Overall cash flow, similar to what we always see, heavy incoming cash during the beginning of the year. The DC per pupil funding is front loaded. So cash flow is working absolutely fine, no concerns there. Balance sheet, very similar to the annual audit, not much new to talk about there. The enrollment numbers we had already talked about last board meeting once we got through the annual student audit. And then just the various target dates we're on track with all of these. Daryl, anything you feel a need to add, or anybody have any questions on any of those numbers?
No, I'm good. Thank you, Brian.
And I don't see any questions raised in the chat.
Question.
Laura, yes.
Laura,
Oh, thanks, Akeem. Brian, thank you for that report. Could you, I really appreciate that. And I'm wondering if you can just help us look out 5 years-ish. I know not with great detail, but what are the things we need to be worrying about, paying attention to, getting ready for as we look way out? Sometimes I find that looking immediately in front of me means I miss things that are farther out. So can you help me at least do some future visioning?
Yeah. Well, I will note we will be, I think, coming back. Brad has been working on updating our longer term financial model. And hopefully we'll have that in a more formal fashion. But informally, I'll simply, as a reminder, note that the long-term financial model that we had put together as we were preparing to go into 14th Street did have us struggling for a few years as we were building up enrollment to capacity at 14th Street, while at the same time carrying the South Dakota rental expense. We no longer are facing that rental expense, but enrollment is not quite where we wanted it to be, and thus the pressures on this year's budget. We will need to watch that enrollment very tightly, because that's going to be the key to getting to the balance point that had been projected in the long term. We as we work on next year's budget, are looking very tightly at the enrollment issues that hit us this year, seeing how they will impact us next year, to what extent we can bring the enrollment up. At the same time, reevaluating some of the expense structuring to bring that down, should we not have the full enrollment to support it. The one other long-term thing, particularly when you say 5 years, I do bring up from time to time, all along there has been interest and talk, but recognition we couldn't, when we moved into 14th Street, afford a gym, but there's a desire to. And I know some people look at that cash and why don't we go ahead? I want to reemphasize what I was saying. With the amount of debt we have, prudent finance and our bond trustees basically require us to hold that high level of cash. So it's not cash that's immediately available for spending. What we need to be doing is focusing on getting the debt paid down. And I've long thought that we've got a 3 to 5 year horizon before we can seriously start thinking of an additional large capital expenditure, such as a gymnasium or additional classroom space. We'll want to keep working on that in terms of looking at it, not to put it in place, but as we get closer to the point that our finances can't afford that, we should be looking at a capital campaign to help support that. Not giving you a lot of definitive now, but giving you a little bit of the roadmap of how we're looking at that longer term plan. And hopefully that gives you a little bit more confidence in it.
Thank you. I think so, but I see Brad has a question, so I'll let him go.
Well, just to go a little bit further. So Lauren, not this past board retreat, but the board retreat prior, when we were finalizing the strategic plan, we did list out the costs of major projects
Right.
that we are considering for the next 5 years. So just back of the envelope, like a gymnasium or additional classroom space, as it may serve, is about $5 million. And maybe more because of how old the previous estimate was and changes in the market. And then there was several other capital improvements or unfinished business from the original plan, which was the kitchen, which is another 150, let's say. and there was some other outdoor programming for like playgrounds and a track, which you could say is probably around 80 or 100. And so over the next 5 years, you know, we have a cash reserve of around $4 million. And so it's likely that the really big one, the gymnasium, is one that we would have to finance unless we were able to raise the funds through a capital campaign. And that leads to other discussion about around finding someone like a development manager to do that, manage that capital raise program. Otherwise, you know, there are some other lower hanging fruit, so to speak, but for the big dollars, we would need a big influx of cash to make that work.
Thanks. I appreciate that. It kind of gets at where I was thinking about, like, we are going to need big fundraising to accomplish all of our goals, regardless of the day-to-day finances and the audit being fine. Thanks.
Any other questions for Finance Committee?
Yeah, and Akeem, just as I know this report is getting long. I just want to quickly share an update with regards to where we are with the budget process timeline. Do I still have time to do that? Akeem?
Yeah, go.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right, cool. Sharing my screen. I'm not going to go through all of this because it's there's a lot, but can everyone see it? Yes? Can someone
Yep,
give me
we
a
can
thumbs
see
up?
it.
Oh, okay. So we have started the budget process. We had the Finance Committee had the budget kickoff last week on January 16th. Couple things I do want to highlight quickly, and they're literally highlighted. So a few things we're going to do different. I mentioned this, I think, at the last board meeting, if not the one prior to that. We haven't come up with an actual name that works for this event, but we're going to have two different, we're calling them town halls for now. And it's an opportunity for the board, more specifically the Finance Committee, as well as the executive team, to share with, separately, share with LAM staff the budget process, talk about our targets and goals for the year, as well as do a high-level review of the staffing plan. I just want to clarify, because we did get some questions at our last Finance Committee meeting. We're not going to go into people's salaries. We're not going to talk about, who's coming back next school year, who's not, that kind of thing. It's just more so just the broad structure. But we're doing this for a couple reasons. One is we feel like as a committee, it's important to be as transparent as possible with our budget process. And two, we also feel like it's important for other members of our school community, namely our staff and families, to have some input on the budget. Not only input, but also know where we're going with regards to this coming year's budget process and cycle. The other highlighted thing here, April 2nd, is when the draft budget will go to the Finance Committee. We'll review that at our next committee meeting, or the committee meeting after that. And once we do, scrub it, review it, and the final budget will then go to the board on April 30th. They'll have an opportunity to review it. And then we have another Finance Committee meeting, May 14th, to cover any questions that came from board members, and any comments as well. One important thing I do need to note is that, unlike previous years, we're actually being a lot more aggressive in terms of when we're getting the final budget to the board for a vote. This year, we're really pushing for our May meeting. Historically, it's been June. But by doing it in May, that gives us some additional time to ensure that we work out any kinks and there's, not a fire drill at the end of this process. If for some reason the budget does not get approved at that May meeting, then we'll send a revised final to the back to the board on May 31st, and then we'll do a final second vote at our June meeting. Just keep in mind that the most important, not the most important, a very important thing that I want to communicate to everyone is July 5th is when our final approved budget has to go to PCSB. So that's why we're trying to ensure that, we get this thing done sooner than later. Any questions?
Very organized of you.
Yeah, I see Eddie has his hand raised, so I'll go to him first.
Oh, thanks, Akeem. Daryl and Brian, thank you so much for this. Through this budget process, are we going to wrap into that kind of long-term planning in terms of like the population of students that we need to target to maintain, to make sure that we're realizing the budget, the long-term budget based on the kind of ultimate vision of the school, and also how that interplays a little bit chicken and the egg with like the ability to build more classrooms so we can kind of comfortably accommodate the maximum number of students that we want to try to kind of maintain at the school. Is that going to be wrapped up in this, or do we need like a separate strategic conversation for that?
Yeah, thank you for that, Eddie. I appreciate it. Full disclosure, this budget that we're focusing on is strictly for FY 24-25. That's not to say that we don't need to have that conversation that you're talking about. And I appreciate you mentioning that because it seems to be an ongoing conversation amongst various board members. So it feels like there's some consensus around us, focusing on long-term. So we will absolutely start focusing on that, but that's not part of this budget process.
Got it. Okay. Thank you so much.
Sure.
It's the difference between an operating budget versus a capital investment.
Makes perfect sense. Thank you.
The one thing that I would flag is it's an election year. I don't anticipate council setting per pupil by that date. So there may be some adjustments that you'll have to make based on whatever comes out of the council. But I anticipate that, like, for all we know, it could be minor.
Thanks for that, Akeem.
Any other questions for Daryl and Brian? All right. Before you move on to operations, I want to take this time to thank Brian. It has been a pleasure working with you this year during this time period, and I really appreciate your responsiveness and the thought and care that you've taken in helping us navigate financially these many transitions over the year, and also just like the work you've done with us getting us to this point. So thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Daryl, you want to go on operations?
Yeah, Maria Jose is going to take it from here. Thank you.
Perfect.
And I'll be quick, given the time. You have seen the report, so I'll just mention some highlights. Things are going well in the operations area. We're up to date with all our codes, or all our permits, everything we have to do. One area that I want to highlight is the good job Juan and his team are doing on our emergency procedures. I'll talk a little bit more about that during the ED report part. We are doing well in compliance. We're up to date. This time of the year, it's very heavy until pretty much the end of this month, all our compliance submissions to the city, to PCSB, to everybody, everything is where it should be right now. Other than that, Family Services continues to do a great work. Two things I want to highlight on that area: our volunteer program that was launched very successfully. We're very happy with the number of parents and of hours that they are giving us to help us on different projects. I'll give you that number. So we have 69 total hours of volunteer work that has been done by 37 parents. They have basically helped us create materials for primary and lower elementary. There's a lot of materials that have to be created for Montessori. They look beautiful, but it also costs a lot of time to get those done. So we're very thankful to those volunteers and are looking to expand that. Right now, we have focused a lot on having those volunteers come on site. One of the things the team is looking for is to see for opportunities to take the work home or to just help us in other areas, to also give an opportunity to those family members that we know are not able to come during a school day to help us, even though they really want to help us in different capacities. We also had a lot of events. This November and December are very busy for us because of all the holidays that take place. We had a total of 8 events and over 1,200 people that participated in this. So for us, this is a great way to engage our community, from big projects to small things. This is as simple as donating to give a turkey to families for Thanksgiving, all the way to coming to any of the events that we organized. January and February are not as busy in this area, but right now we're busy focusing on outreach because we're in the lottery season. So January and February will be very busy for us on that respect. And that's what I'll share about operations. Are there any questions or comments related to it?
I'll go ahead and share this now. I was gonna save it for the ED report, but I'll go ahead. I happened to be at the school when the emergency happened. Was it last week? 2 weeks ago? 2 weeks ago. All the weeks have run together. 2 weeks ago. I do want to commend you guys and the work you guys did. It brought back memories watching the kids orderly walk out of the evacuate the school. It brought back memories from my time teaching. And I was very impressed that everyone was able to get out in an orderly fashion. And it seemed like everyone knew where they were supposed to go. And I want to commend you guys for the work you did on that. Last thing, I wanted to mention, Daryl has been wearing 2 hats for the past year as finance chair and operations chair. And I thanked him for that when I joined the finance meeting last week, but I wanted to take the opportunity to publicly thank him for doing that. It meant a lot to me that he was able to, that he was willing to do that. And I'm eternally grateful for your service in doing that. So thank you.
Thanks again. Appreciate the kind words.
We can go on to governance. So I'm going to pass that to Amanda and Fernanda.
Great, thanks, Akeem. Yes, so the governance committee has exciting news. That's Fernando, Celeste, and I. We have been shepherding the board through its annual chair election process. We received some really great counsel from Carrie Irvin, our external DC Public Charter School Board nonprofit consultant who thinks about governance issues, and she advised the governance committee to reflect on what we felt the school would need in the coming year to have that conversation with the board. We did that at the board retreat in December. We then had a call for nominees. We had two individuals who were nominated by others who agreed to be considered for chair. We have conducted a poll of the board. And based on the results of that poll, the governance committee wanted to, today is prepared to recommend a chair for confirmation by the board. So with thanks to Daryl for his willingness to serve, Fernando Zeleste and I would like to recommend Daryl Clay for the role of chair for LAM's coming, the coming chair cycle year, the year 2024. Can we get a move or something?
I will entertain a motion to accept and act on the governance committee's recommendation.
So moved.
Thank you, Brad. Is there a second? Thank you, Fernando. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, you can either say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, El Shaddai. Any opposed? Seeing none, effective tomorrow morning, Daryl Clay will be the new chair of the LAM board.
Congratulations, Daryl. I think LAM.
There's applause in the background of my apartment right now, Daryl.
Perfect. I wanted to take this moment to share with the LAM board and the LAM community just how fortunate we are for the candidates that we had and people's willingness. It was really clear, I think, to the governance committee that LAM is a very fortunate community for the number of people who are willing to take on this really substantial role that I have had a front row seat on this year, and I'm very impressed. I wanted to thank the governance committee, Fernando and Zeleste. I just feel extraordinarily lucky. They were a great, collaborative, thoughtful, responsive team, and it's been a blast to work with them this cycle. Which is not me allowing them off the hook for future governance work. Should it be on the cards? And perhaps most importantly, Akeem, I do this regularly, but I feel like it needs to be done regularly. I just want to thank you for what you've given the school and the school community in terms of blood, sweat, and tears. It has been extraordinary to see what you've done, and I think the expertise that you bring and the understanding you bring of how the sausage gets made in this business is extraordinary. And LAM has been really, really lucky to have you as a chair. So thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Akeem.
Thank you for that. And thank you, Amanda and Fernando, for taking charge with the governance committee. It was always helpful to have one less thing to worry about. I'll go ahead and let the cat out of the bag. I am anticipating this being my last board meeting as a member of the board. I have offered to stay on the roster until a replacement is named, so that there remains an odd number of board members listed. But this will be my last board meeting. In Montessori fashion, I think it is time for someone else to take on the work. And so throughout, there'll be some thank yous for folks who have been instrumental in helping me survive this year. So anything else from the governance committee?
Welcome to Jerry. And that's it. Really glad to have you here, Jerry. So.
Thank you. We can now go on to school. We'll do school performance committee, and then an overview of where we are with the executive director search committee. Is that right, Laura?
Yes, I can do both of those.
Okay, perfect. We'll start with school performance.
Okay, school performance committee had a meeting 2 weeks ago on a day when I was sitting in the school and the school had been cleared. So there were not a lot of people in school. Anyway, it was the role reversal because usually Alex is in school and I'm on Zoom, but we had the opposite. In any case, we had a really good meeting. Full committee was in attendance, I believe. And we talked about a lot of things. And keep in mind, the school performance committee has been we've been letting the team at school get their sea legs. And so this fall, we did not meet regularly. I think you all know that, but I'll just remind you. So we had a lot to cover, some of which Alex and Maria Jose are going to cover in the ED report. So I'm just going to flag a couple things. First of all, we talked about the Dibbles and Lictor, second round of testing. We talked about what we're learning from that. Alex and Maria Jose showed incredibly detailed, sliced and diced detailed data around how we're doing. And she's going to talk about that, but I'm really impressed with the care that is being taken, not just on the data, but presenting the data so that people can understand it. We talked about mid-year goals and looking ahead to the end of the year. And we also talked about the scope and sequence. I'm happy to say that the scope and sequence will be ready for public, not external public, but for internal review by the first week of March. So before we go into, well, spring break is not at the beginning of March, it's later. So in any case, beginning of March-ish, we will have a draft for review. And that's really important because we've been talking about this for a good long time. And we want to make sure that A, progress is being made, and B, when it's complete, it's actually shared with the community. So thank you for the leadership from Alex, Maria Jose, and the team. Really impressed. And they're going to talk about that, as I said, during the next hour. Alex, is there anything else you want me to say right now?
No, Laura, you did great. I'm gonna go more in deep during the
Yeah.
ED report. Okay.
And then the other thing we're talking about is revising, refreshing a what we're going to call a dashboard so that people can have at the ready regular information. And we're talking about how detailed that needs to be versus and how often that needs to come out. It's a pulse check, so it doesn't need to have everything, but it should have a few things on it where everybody on the board can open the link and say, oh, okay, here's the data, here's how we're doing, red, yellow, green, or high, medium, low in these areas, and what progress we're making. Okay. May I move on to the next topic? Any questions
yes.
on that before we move
Yeah,
on?
any questions on that part? We'll have the opportunity to go a little deeper in the ED report. So Laura, you want to go ahead to the ED part?
I do. Well, let's see. I pulled it up because I was going to be super prepared. And now, where is it? Hold on. I'm coming. Okay. So I'm going to share my screen and give you all a quick update on the executive director search. And because we are tape recording this, I am going to read the slides for those people who are not here. But don't worry, it's a very focused update. Okay, so I'm going to now provide an update to you all on where we are on the search. And as I start talking, I want to just really thank the committee. I will thank you again before the end, but Mayura, Fernando, Daryl, El Shaddai, and I have been on this committee and working tirelessly at this since the summer. It has been a fairly heavy lift, and I just want to thank you guys. Here's where we are in this process. We spent July through September in discovery. We sourced over 300 candidates and we're in conversation with them through our consulting firm Agility. I cannot say enough about how effective and prepared and organized they are. Fantastic. They conducted video and phone interviews with a number of people. We had semifinalist interviews with the committee via Zoom, multiple candidates. We narrowed those down to 3 and had finalist interviews 2 weeks ago in person. And at this point, we're getting close to making a decision. Sorry, I'm trying to see that. Just to reiterate, the 3 finalist candidates were identified from a pool of 6 semifinalist candidates, and they each participated in a full day on-campus interview 2 weeks ago. During that time, we did a lot with them. They had a full school tour. They observed classrooms. They met with members of the community, including teachers, staff, and families, before ending the day with a presentation to the search committee. We are at the point where we are going to be ready to make an offer to our top candidate. We have not done so yet. Once an offer is accepted, I will notify the board, and the board will then determine a communication plan to notify the LAM community. We will take this up in our executive session later. And that's all I want to present, and I'm happy to take questions if people have them. If I could stop sharing. There we go.
I do want to share that this is a pretty standard procedure. We consulted with Agility throughout the process, and even in the next step when it comes to the board making the decision, that is the these actions are the recommendation of Agility. Because I also knew that we were doing this chair transition, I had asked Laura to handle the negotiations with whoever is the candidate that receives the offer. One of the reasons I did that is, one, I think it is important to separate the role of chair of the board and that person's management role of the current ED. So it was important to keep those things separate. It is also why I only attended, I think, 2 of the search committee meetings, and the first one was just to establish some logistical things that I thought made the most sense, and then the last one was to just offer. I had the opportunity to meet with all 3 of the finalists and offer my thoughts on that piece. I did not have a vote in it. I wanted to keep it that way. And so the votes were made by the people who were on that committee. And I want to thank all of you guys for serving on that committee. It was really important to have people who had the experience around search, executive search, the deep connection to LAM, and also like an understanding of a deep understanding of the problems and the opportunities that were ahead. And then lastly, Laura also wore 2 hats this year for me, and I am immensely grateful. Laura also was the one who put me in this position. So I feel like I kind of paid you back a little over the year, but I am immensely grateful that, one, I got the opportunity to meet you and work with you on my time on the board. And I'm also immensely grateful that you accepted the challenge of wearing these 2 hats. I cannot thank you enough. So thank you.
Well, that's very nice. And it was my pleasure. And really, it was a team effort. Very much so. So we'll continue this discussion in executive session. I just want to go back to something I said, which is that this is an amazing process, just the number of people who put their names into the hat, and ultimately the great people we had come out the funnel at the other end. This is a unicorn job. It is, there's multiple hats that this position has to take on. And I'm excited to say that we had awesome candidates, but it was it is a fantastic organization that we have with very uniqueness, a lot of uniquenesses. I don't think that's a word, that make us special. And therefore, the search has been interesting to try to find someone that fits all of the hats that we have. So thank you, and we'll talk about it more later.
With that, I think it is safe to move on to the ED report.
Can you hear me? Okay,
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm cognizant of time, so I'll go a little quick over some items and just highlight the ones that are more significant. Please, if you have questions about things I didn't have time to highlight, just send me an email or write me a note. Sorry, my screen just froze. Sophia, let's try this. If you can help me out, that'd be great, because if not, it seems that it's doing weird things again. First thing, I wanted to just give you a heads up about the new accountability framework. This is something that the DC Public Charter School Board has been working on for some years. They're at a point where in February, they're about to release a guide on what their new framework is, how the scores are going to be calculated, and give us an opportunity to provide input. Their new framework is called the Annual School Performance Index Report, and it's going to help measure how Lama and all the other charter schools are doing. I bring this to your attention because I think it's very important for us. We have been engaged at the ED level. I've been participating in a lot of conversations and meetings, but given the importance of this document, I think it will be equally important for the board to engage and provide some comment to everything that's coming out. The new framework is going to have a 1 to 5 rating, with 1 being the highest. Things to note here is that this replaces completely what we have had before, and it is a completely different type of framework. It weights very heavily students from diverse backgrounds, from special education and English language learners. So this is going to have a big impact in how all charter schools in the city are going to be measured. I'll start discussions with this in February with the SPC committee. So of course, we'll bring all of that to the full board at the February or future meetings. The next slide, please. Then the second thing I wanted to bring to your attention is what have we been doing? I presented this back in, I believe, August or September, and it was like our results for PARCC, both in MAP and ELA. A refresher, we saw decreases in performance for most of our subgroups. What I'm going to focus right now is we have an entire goal for the entire year. We have been making a lot of efforts around English language arts. For now, our effort for moving forward will continue that one, but it's around math. And given how all our populations did didn't do as well as before, but if you see the results of our Black, Latino, special education, and English language learners, you understand our next effort. Next slide, please. So the way we're going to do this is we're focusing on priority students. For some years, LAM has offered a tutoring program to help prepare students for PARCC. We're bringing that back, but it's a different type of program. We're focusing on priority students, and we are rolling out a new tutoring effort. To create this, we looked at best practices in impact tutoring and are trying to adapt those practices the best we can to our reality. The research tells us that for this to work, each group has to have 4 or less students, at least 90 minutes per week of tutoring on that specific subject. And those are the 2 practices that we want to pilot next year. So for this, we have identified 20 students from LAM. All of them are part of those priority populations you saw before. They had the lowest drops in the academic results in math. So we're going to do the tutoring with these students. 16 are Latino, 7 are African American or Black, 19 are English language learners, and 14 of them have IEPs. Of course, they're represented in more than one category. All of them will receive this tutoring from March all the way to April. We will be looking carefully at the results that we gain from this. We are going to be looking at if the program we put in place works, what impact it has, and for next school year, how we can scale it up so we can offer this opportunity to more students. Something else that we're doing with these priority students, we have partnered with an organization that's called Horizons DC, and we're sponsoring 20 of these 23 students to attend their summer programs. What they offer is summer camps that are academic intensive, both in math and English language arts, at the same time that they do fun things like learning to swim and having some wonderful field trips and such. You will receive at some point, we'll go over like all of the efforts are for priority students to see the type of impact we have and how much that has helped us move the needle. Of course, most of these won't come up until next September once we see results for what is called now CAPE, which is basically what PARCC was before. Next slide, please. Another issue I wanted to highlight was attendance. Last year, we dedicated a lot of focus on this. LAM historically did not have a strong attendance process or program in place. Last year was quite painful. We learned a lot of lessons and went through a lot of growing pains to develop our program. I'm very happy to share with you our current data for this. As you see, attendance year to date has slightly increased, and chronic absenteeism has decreased. Where we see an increase is in the truancy rates. We check this data weekly. This will be part of the dashboard that Laura was mentioning. This is part of what PCSB looks at, like to assess our performance. And of course, it has a huge impact on academic results. The next slide, please. So we think some of this improvement is due to the efforts that we have put in place. So we will continue those and we continue to fine tune those interventions. So I'm very thankful for the family services team. They are the lead on this effort and they have really helped us increase our attendance percentage here. The truancy cases, there's 24 in total. That's the 4% you saw there. 15 out of those are primary students. So what this data is telling us is that we need to do a better job educating primary students about the importance of coming to school. Part of it is that, like for the city, attendance is, they track attendance and it's like a requirement from kinder and above. So historically, this has told pre-K3 and pre-K4 families that it's not as important to attend school and that take more breaks or vacations or just days off. We will be exploring how to help them see, like, it's really important, even though it's not a requirement, we do want you to attend. So stay tuned for more on that. Overall though, and I'm sharing there the citywide chronic absenteeism rates, we're doing really well. It's just that, of course, we want to do even better than where we are. But this is after a year of putting a lot of our efforts on this area. Next slide. Emergency protocols, Akeem mentioned this already. We had a bomb threat on January 10th. Our procedures work really well. We have been up to date in all of the emergency protocols that we need to practice all of our drills, and we usually debrief things with our emergency consultant. We did this after this. He gave us an A+, and the main reason I want to bring this up is because our response rate was excellent. It was like we were outside in less than 15 minutes from receiving that bomb threat. That means that a lot of things went well in this process, from the person that received the email to what she did next, and all the way for us to be outside. This helped us a lot that day. Because so many schools received this bomb threat, the police was overwhelmed trying to deal with this issue. Since we were one of the first, we were also one of the first schools to get police response, meaning we could get back to the building and resume normal activities fairly quickly. Other schools had to wait above 2 hours and above to just get the police there. So basically that disrupted their entire school day. I'm very thankful for all the staff to do this. Sometimes, drills are disruptive and all, but it showed us that we are all doing a great job at practicing and remembering what we need to do and how to keep the students feeling, safe and comfortable in the midst of an emergency situation. Next slide. For now here, Alex is going to help me with some academic highlights.
Gracias, María José. And of course, I'm here with all the academic highlights. We have a lot to celebrate, a lot of work that needs to be done, but we are in a good path. So I'm happy to say that we're meeting our literacy goals. We create a goal at the beginning of the year, trying to align the 3 levels with the literacy goal, adapting that to the science of reading. And science of reading and approach to our language program at the 3 levels have been amazing. Primary already did for all the English guides, the Pink Series training. We included 2 SPED teachers. And also some of the teachers in primary are taking the Orton Gillingham training. From lower and upper elementary, they're also taking the Orton Gillingham training. We have around 40% of the teachers implementing already as a pilot program the Science of Reading Orton Gillingham, taking in account that they have 3 different trainings, which is the phonological awareness training, the comprehensive plus training, and the morphology plus training. And we are including also, and we have on board the SPED team to be on the same page with our literacy goal. The scope and sequence, which is something that everyone is waiting for. We create a timeline also at the beginning of the year with 3 phases. We already had the 2 first phases, and we are in the middle of the phase 3, which is the review and update all lessons for all academic areas. So we are expecting to have the scope and sequence at the end of February, first week of March, rolling around with the teachers. As Maria Jose was saying, our focus this year was data, and a lot of data. So we are creating with the academic team this tutoring program that is going to help us with CAPE. And we are going to focus on math this year and just for the priority students. Those students are going to receive around 90 to 120 minutes per week. We are looking for strong teachers with math background in-house. All resources are going to be shared. We are going to begin with a skills week for the students, but also for the resources that we have and we are going to implement are going to be out for all the 3rd, 4th, and 5th students. So that means that we are going to same homework with CAPE task. It's just the responsibility of parents helping us there. But all the resources are going to be shared for everyone. With the professional development, I'm happy to say that we are working really close with the Canizales group. They're helping us with the bilingual and literacy plan, creating a language allocation plan. We already turned our first draft to them. They're reviewing, but the teachers are on board on this. We're having conversations during the PD, and we're happy to include the teachers there. We have been working with Ali Just, which is a mom from LAM that is helping us with the resilience part and helping us, giving us tips for the emotional part for the students, teachers, and staff in general. And then we have been working with Empower K-12. They are creating a dashboard, and this is more for teachers. As we know, NWEA is really hard to digest. So we create and we're working in partnership with them to create this dashboard that is going to facilitate to see the data and to work really close with the teachers. Next slide, please. Gracias, Sophie. We had the winter on levels and lecturer testing window before the winter break. The NWEA testing, it's coming next week, and it's going through the week of February 12th. And I'm happy to say that the first round of interventions had a great data results, and this second round will help us to keep having regular data meetings with teachers. And during this second round, we're including kinder students and focusing more on writing and reading. And of course, that's all I have. But before, I wanted to shout out everyone. This is not a word that is just from the A team. Completing goals and creating goals is not easy. So I really want to say that I appreciate all my A team, all the teachers that have been like working really hard for the best of the kids, the SST team, and of course, the school performance committee that have been working really close with me and Maria Jose and Alicia. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. Brian, I don't know if you want to highlight anything else about finance.
I think we covered all the significant points. There may be another small point or two in here, but everybody sees it. We can move on.
So those were the highlights of what I wanted to share with the board at this time. I don't know if there are any questions or any comments.
Any questions for Marie Jose?
I don't have a question, just a comment about how thorough that was and how much I appreciate all the information. Thank you.
Yeah, I will go ahead and take this opportunity to thank a few other people. I do want to, Anna Marie's not here, but she's been immensely helpful over the course of my time as chair. And so I would hope that you guys would extend my thank yous to her. I didn't get to do this earlier during the operations piece, but Brad has been a great asset for the board when it comes to operations and thinking about the building and just like your sage advice that you've given on our phone calls. I appreciate all you've done, even if you are a Michigan fan. And then Alex Torres, I want to thank you for stepping in the role as interim principal. I appreciate you answering my multiple phone calls, getting you to accept the role. And I'm excited to watch your leadership over the next couple of years. And professionally, if there's anything that I can do to help, feel free to reach out. And then lastly, Marie Jose, we've gone on this journey together, it feels like. And I remember when I called to ask if you would take on the role as interim ED, and you said, I knew at some point you would probably have to ask me. Well, I knew I was going to ask you too, and I just wanted to give you the moment to wrap your head around it. I appreciate the steady leadership you've given the school over this turbulent time, and the relationships that you've built and repaired in the building. I think every time I've gone into the building, it has been a joyous occasion this year. And a lot of that is because of the leadership that you've provided, and the steady hand that you've given. And so I want to thank you. Thank you for that. With that, I don't think there are any other questions. We have to go into a closed session, a closed executive session, to discuss, to consult with an attorney. Have you got the reasons here? We've got to consult with an attorney to obtain legal advice and to preserve the attorney-client privilege. And we also have to discuss, establish or instruct the public body staff or negotiating agents concerning the position to be taken in negotiating material terms of the contract. So I'm the people who are going to join us will join us at 7. So what I will do is, to board members, check your email. I'll send you out a Zoom link. We'll follow all the rules of the Open Meeting Act in that Zoom link, but it is going to be a closed session. And we will reconvene at 7 p.m. for a closed session.
Thank
Just
you,
to
everyone.
confirm, that's executive session or closed session?
An executive closed session, so you
Yes.
guys cannot be on that
Right.
one,
Right.
or else I would have just continued using this link.
Yeah.
But we'll make sure to get, once we go back into open session and whatnot, we'll get the recording of that to you guys. But I need a motion. So moved that we can go into executive closed session.
Motion to go into closed executive session.
Thank you, Laura. Is there a second?
Second,
Thank you to whoever seconded
it
it.
was Mayura.
Oh, Myra. Okay, thank you. I was looking for the green microphone highlighting
And-
thing.
Confirm, Akeem, that's like a 12-minute tea break that we all have now.
Yeah,
You want us at
I've got
7?
15 minutes. Yeah, I want
All
you guys at 7. So I'll see you guys at 7.